Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Barbara Casu. I'm Professor of Finance, and I am Deputy Dean here at BASE Business School. I am very pleased to welcome you here this evening for the annual Portal Trust Lecture, which will be delivered by Colleen Harris. I am sure we can look forward to some compelling insights from Colleen into what the great city of London can still teach the rest of the world when she speaks in just a few minutes. Before we begin, I need to do the usual housekeeping formalities. Firstly, please ensure that your mobile phones are switched off or on silent mode. Thank you. On a happier note, I do hope you will join us after the lecture for drinks and canapes just outside here in the foyer. I have to say that I am excited by the theme of this evening's lecture, not least as it ties so well with BASE's motto of always learning. You may have seen those words on our windows as you entered the building this evening. That is our commitment to building a better and exciting future for our diverse student bodies, our diverse faculty, and our diverse global city. We are proud to be BASE Business School and proud to be part of City, University of London. We sit at the historic heart of one of the world's oldest cities. It may have its root in the ancient world, but our city can still be a global leader for the future. Both the Portal Trust and the Business School continue to adapt as the city and the world around us changes. As many of you will know, the Sir John Cass Foundation was relaunched as the Portal Trust 3 years ago. That significant step was triggered by recognizing its founders' association with the transatlantic slave trade. We also went through a similar process, and we changed our name to BASE Business School. Thomas Bayes was a mathematician who is best known for Bayes' theorem, which suggests that we get closer to the truth by constantly updating our beliefs as the weight of evidence changes. So our new name honors not just an individual, but an idea. It underlies the 3 principles of BASE Business School. We care, we learn, we act. As conflict rages across the globe and democratic principles seems to be under attack in many countries, the need for critical thinking skills has never been greater. We teach our students how to think rather than what to think, while producing research that has a real impact on business, society, and the environment. Our school mentoring program, which we are very proud of and which the Portal Trust funds, is a great example of the spirit of collaboration and partnership between our 2 organizations. You may have seen the BBC recent coverage of the mentoring program, which spoke to several young people whose lives and educational ambitions have been transformed by it. Those young people embodied the Portal Trust ambition to support the education of young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. We are constantly seeking new ways to serve both our potential and current students and to build an inclusive and diverse community, not just within these walls, but in the nation in which we live, and indeed around the world. Excellent teaching and world-class research are at the core of what we do at BASE, encouraging innovative thinking that is rooted in the most up-to-date theory and practice, and challenges how we think. Ladies and gentlemen, you're all very welcome to BASE this evening, and I hope you enjoy your evening with us. I would like now to welcome to the stage Denise Jones, the Portal Trust Deputy Chair and Chair of Grants. She will say a few words before introducing our speaker, Colleen. Denise, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara, and good evening, everyone. First, I'm going to say a few thank yous, then a few words about the Portal Trust, and before I introduce our speaker, Colleen, we'll see a little video about the Portal Trust. So, my thank yous. So it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you here tonight and to really thank BASE Business School for letting us have this wonderful lecture here tonight. On behalf of the Trust, I'd like to thank you all as well for coming here tonight. As Deputy Chair of the charity, I'm deeply committed to education and the empowerment of young people, as I think we probably all are. And I'm immensely proud of the work that we've all accomplished together. So from a charity here in Islington that works with sight-impaired school leavers across career services, to a college in Greenwich that works with students who are have disabilities and they're very talented in music, and we run wonderful projects for teaching them music, and not forgetting our schools, Aldgate School and Stepney All Saints, as they continue to go from strength to strength, as well as the bursaries that we give to many individuals. We believe that every child deserves a chance to shine, to reach their potential. The Portal Trust showcases the organisations we've supported on our website. So if you have a chance, have a look at the website, because we do fund 45 organisations every year, and there's the history of the organisations that we've previously funded. We include those organisations working with prisoner education, music tuition, drama, arts, truancy, mental health, and single homelessness, and that's just a few. So last year, we were very surprised, and you might be surprised actually, to hear that 1 in 7 primary schools in this country do not have a school library. It was extraordinary. So we worked with the National Literacy Trust's campaign, which is called Libraries to Primaries, giving money to, I think it's 9 schools in Lewisham to start with, training staff as librarians and setting up areas in their schools for libraries. It's really important that young children have access to books, and going to see those children and visiting the libraries and seeing them, actually sometimes hugging their books because they know they can take them home, because a lot of the children don't have books at home. So it's an extraordinary project. Tonight we have the privilege of hearing from Colleen, a speaker whose insights are both topical and thought-provoking. And Colleen is a communications and diversity professional with more than 30 years' experience. She's one of the top 100 black leaders in business and is one of London's most powerful black leaders who is a woman. Colleen is the independent diversity consultant to the Portal Trust, and we value her expert advice. And Colleen was with us when we changed our name from Sir John Cass Foundation to the Portal Trust, and going through all the conversations about the slave trade and deciding what do we do, and she was most invaluable. Her advice was brilliant at that time. So before Colleen takes the stage, we'll share a short video that captures the essence of our mission, and the smiles and the breakthroughs and the sheer joy of learning you'll see when you hear what the children have to say. So I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you.
From bikes to unicorns, ecology to university, the Portal Trust is on a mission to empower organisations, groups and individuals who have exciting new ideas to support young Londoners like me. Ideas like Young Artists!
This gives young people in East London free theatre, arts and leadership workshops, enabling them to develop their confidence and explore their creativity, easing their path into higher education or employment. The Portal Trust have also partnered with
the Autism Project!
This 2-year programme for autistic young people gives us confidence, experience and the skills to take the next step into employment. Recently, we formed a band and I'm the singer. Original and inspiring ideas like this make a great way to meet other people and helps us be creative and be ourselves. The Portal Trust also supports
the Urban Nature Project, run by the Natural History Museum. This bold new venture inspires young people to take action on urban biodiversity loss, empowering the next generation of nature advocates, offering a Level 2 apprenticeship as well as creating a full-time entry-level position. This forward-thinking project is helping develop and create new jobs, much like the work going on at
Onwards and Upwards, a charity that launches social enterprises that support and employ ex-offenders. XO Bikes is their first venture, training young people to become bike mechanics. It helps break the cycle of reoffending and is a showcase for the talent of ex-offenders to businesses and society at large. These are just a few examples of the many exciting and innovative ideas supported by the Portal Trust. Every year, the Portal Trust funds around 45 great educational projects that improve opportunities for thousands of young Londoners to find their potential. So, if you have an exciting and original idea that needs funding, find out how the Portal Trust can support you. Visit portaltrust.org. Change begins here.
And that's a wrap.
Thanks. That just gives you a flavour of some of the work that the Portal Trust is funding. And I would like to pay tribute to Richard Foley, who's the Chief Executive of the Portal Trust, and the whole team that put all this work together and make it happen. And of course, thanking all the organisations for applying to us and supporting us, and you all in the audience for coming and for supporting the Portal Trust as well. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Colleen to the stage, and we can hear what London has to teach the rest of the world.
Thank you,
Colleen.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Denise. Let me start by thanking Bayes Business School and the Portal Trust for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. I know that this is an unusual privilege. This podium is normally reserved for the educated and informed. Well, I'm a spin doctor and a diversity consultant by trade, so no one could accuse me of being either informed or educated. Apart from the wonderful Baroness Floella Benjamin, sadly being unable to speak to you today, I imagine that the reason for inviting me to stand in for her is because of the importance that Bayes and Portal Trust place on the work of education and diversity. If education is about anything, it's about making sure that everyone, regardless of background, is given the chance to fulfill their potential and improve their life chances. But once I mention diversity, I'm usually met with raised eyebrows, looks of disinterest. The word diversity can evoke that feeling, you've heard it all before, isn't it done yet? But for me, one of the diverse, I'm reminded of the plaintive question asked by Rodney King after the Los Angeles riots nearly 20 years ago. The question still resonates unanswered. Why can't we just get along? The amazing Portal Trust, like many charitable institutions, provides educational opportunities for young people facing disadvantage. The Portal Trust, however, is unique because it operates mainly in London. An organisation dating back to 1748, steeped in the history of London, is looking to the future of the city and investing in its young people. Both Bayes Business School and the Portal Trust sit centre stage in London's history and its future. And both have, in recent years, become synonymous with excellence in education, as well as a respect for diversity. They both stand as testament to the power of knowledge, while also serving as positive examples of how acknowledging racial issues and embracing diversity can benefit the fabric of our society and pave the way for us to all just get along. Today, I'm going to talk to you about London's historic reputation. as the brainy city that opens its arms to the world, welcoming people from diverse backgrounds and cultures. This diversity is not just tolerated, it's celebrated. But to say that we celebrate diversity used to offend me. But I've now chosen to see it not merely as a superficial gesture, but a commitment to creating environments where everyone feels respected and valued, where people feel empowered to contribute their unique perspectives and talents, making London a city where everyone can find their place and contribute to its ongoing story. But first, who am I? London born and bred, child of Gladstone and Sheila, a pharmacist and a nurse who travelled from Guyana in South America to join the NHS in their hour of need. Part of that Windrush generation that helped to rebuild Britain and are now both loved and sadly sometimes a little misunderstood too. Teaching, my chosen career, was not for me. And after a spell in the British Museum and the Natural History Museum, where I was the lone black member of staff in any of the offices, I experienced both horrendous and some rather funny banter and taunting, depending on your perspective. Well, great stories for my book when it comes out. I ended up in government communications and was the first black press officer in government across the whole of the UK. Then I went on to become the first black senior press officer working for the Prime Minister in Downing Street and the first black member of the royal household. Yes, me, not Meghan. Fabulous and fascinating experiences working at the heart of the British establishment. But the importance of belonging cannot be overstated. And after years of being the only one in the room, I was exhausted dealing with the banter and wanted some company. Eventually, I sought solace in the diversity world, the Commission for Racial Equality, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, the United Nations, and the World Health Organization, all very diverse institutions. And now, decades after my parents made the brave decision to leave their home country behind and move to England, I find myself as a representative Deputy Lieutenant for Greater London, presiding over citizenship ceremonies where I represent the establishment and welcome new citizens to the UK. What a turn of events for the child of immigrants. Bravo, Gladstone and Sheila. We're living in an age of globalisation. The movement of people across the planet is increasing at a phenomenal rate. A while back, Bill Clinton said that globalisation is not a policy, it's a fact. The only issue is how we respond to it. It's not going to stop. With that in mind, it's interesting to note that the United Nations estimates that more than 300 million people live and work outside their country of birth. And the City of London is home to some 4 million of these people. London has become one of the most ethnically diverse and multicultural cities in the world. Around 37% of its population were born outside the UK. And over 300 languages are spoken in London. Motivations for leaving your home country can vary. Like my parents, seeking to further their careers, but London's reputation as a global educational powerhouse is well deserved and attracts many from far and wide. The city is home to some of the world's most prestigious universities and educational institutions, including, of course, Bayes Business School and City University. And London's commitment to education extends beyond its universities. Our city boasts a diverse array of schools, colleges and vocational training institutions, providing opportunities for individuals of all ages and backgrounds to pursue lifelong learning and skill development. Indeed, the Portal Trust supports 2 trust schools, Aldgate and Stepney All Saints. But London's educational institutions are not just academic silos. They are active participants in the city's economy. Research from these institutions drives innovation and entrepreneurship, contributing to London's status as a global hub for technology, finance, and creative industries. We even see this with the links between the Portal Trust, the University of the Arts, and the V&A, for example. With its deep historical roots, London has always been home to a mix of cultures, ideas, and innovations. It is a city where the echoes of the past meet the dynamic pulse of the future. From the Roman establishment of Londinium to the bustling metropolis it is today, London has been a stage for historical events, scientific discoveries, and artistic movements. But what makes London truly remarkable is its ability to evolve and adapt, ensuring it remains at the forefront of advancements. For example, in the realm of artificial intelligence, London has positioned itself as a global leader, with our Prime Minister hosting the world's first conference on AI. But what truly sets London apart is its unique spirit, a blend of openness, diversity, and resilience. The latter has been demonstrated time and again throughout its history. Excuse me. But in recent years, London has been challenged in a different way. To move from the trappings of its colonial history and become a city that not only accepts different people and cultures, but finds a way for all voices to be heard and respected. Just over 60 years ago, the House of Commons debated immigration policy when the Macmillan government proposed controls designed explicitly to keep new Commonwealth migrants, that is, black people, out of Britain. We know from the Cabinet papers that have since been released that this decision was motivated by a fear of increased racism, as well as the fear that allowing more black people into Britain would create a backlash that threatened peaceful community relations. Many politicians did not agree with this view. And just as Attlee had waved away complaints about the arrival of the Empire Windrush in 1948, they argued that we need not fear immigration, and that anyway it would ebb and flow with the economic needs of the country. Similarly to the decline of the British Empire, globalisation has had many social consequences, and the response of British society is just as critical to our future prosperity now as it was then. Whatever your view, it's hard to ignore the fact that our long-term future is inextricably linked to the rest of the world by the bonds of international trade, by faster telecommunications and travel, and also by the threat of environmental and security challenges. Of course, this is true the world over, but like other European nations, we have a special set of challenges from globalisation, which are not shared with newer nations such as Australia and the United States. Our unique challenge lies in our imperial history. Globalisation means that we are increasingly colliding with our own past as those we previously colonised turn up here in the UK. This means that our approach to our multi-ethnic future cannot be the same as those newer nations. The famous Caribbean folk poet Louise Bennett predicted as much in the 1950s when she wrote her satire, Colonisation in Reverse, which starts, I needed that water because I have to apologise to anyone who can actually speak Jamaican patois as I try to recite this poem. What a joyful news, Miss Mattie. I feel like me heart gwyn burst. Jamaica people colonising, England in reverse. By the 100, by the 1,000, from country and from town, by the shipload, by the plane load, Jamaica is England bound. And she then put the key question in her own very special way. What a devilment at England. Them faced war and braved the worst. But a wondering how them gwyn stand, colonising in reverse. We are, as I say, colliding with our past. But this time, we are not the masters. We are, like all others in the West, having to negotiate our way through the management of migration essential to our economic prosperity. And it's not a simple process, despite Brexit. Most of the increase in immigration is led by students. Indeed, England is one of the most successful nations when it comes to attracting overseas students, with around nearly 500,000 student visas issued in 2022. The majority like to stay to get work experience here before they return to their own country. Globalisation brings benefits for us, but at the same time, it changes what we mean by us, as many of those staying are not only from Commonwealth countries, but from places like China, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe. The colour and culture of societies has changed. Cultural homogeneity is a thing of the past. Globalisation has made the politics of identity the true politics of our time. And in recent years, it has been dramatised by the debate over immigration. What is more at issue at the moment is the degree to which communities can cope with the change. We used to talk about 10 or so ethnic minority communities. We can now identify in London alone over 40 substantial groups of people with recent foreign antecedents. We continue to have more different kinds of people. In the 2021 census, there were 19 ethnic categories, a jump from 9 in 1991. But given that one single category includes sons of Somali goat herders and Ghanaian lawyers, it still seems to give quite a crude picture. There is also the challenge of greater transnationalism. That's quite a complex issue, but basically, when migrants arrived 100 years ago, they more or less broke with their past. It was too far and too difficult to consider going back. Today, international travel and communications mean that you need not abandon the physical link with the past. People travel back and forth and beyond with ease. The challenge of integrating new and settled communities as they live together, both in the short and long term, will continue to grow with ever increasing globalisation. The global movement of people has not just increased, it has changed. We acknowledge that a city of over 8 million people will bring challenges, and London, to date, has been good at working through the many kinds of difference which can sometimes lead to people feeling ostracised or disadvantaged. However, for some in our society, life is still all too often solitary, poor, nasty, brutish and short. Minorities around the country find themselves disproportionately amongst those whose life chances are the least promising, who are more prone to be the victims of crime and who have higher rates of infant mortality and lower life expectancy. As a diversity consultant of more than 30 years standing, many of the challenges remain. I am still asked, for example, how to prevent homophobic bullying at school and even in the workplace, how to tackle gang culture, largely regarded as a black issue, how to ensure dignity and respect for people in care and their carers, whether an employer can refuse to employ a hairdresser who wears the veil, what constitutes discrimination against women, pregnant or otherwise. We do know that, for example, whatever class you belong to, your race is an obstacle all by itself. For example, African Caribbean men and Pakistani men, when compared with white men of similar qualifications, will on average be earning between £5,000 and £6,500 less each year. Today, I can tell you with statistical certainty that an African Caribbean boy has twice as much chance of seeing the inside of a jail as he has of taking a university degree. I can tell you that a gypsy or traveller child has about a 1 in 4 chance of passing 5 good GCSEs and virtually none of getting 3 A-levels. And I can tell you that nearly 50% of adults with a learning disability or a learning difficulty in Britain have no qualifications. More of us are defining ourselves as disabled. There are around 16 million disabled adults, approximately 750,000 disabled children in the UK. This suggests that disability affects at least 1 in 5 of us. In the classroom, it's no longer just about how we make sure we're meeting the needs of black and brown children. Today, the question is how we deal with a class with completely different pupils in June than it had in September. Both how we meet the needs of the children who move in and out with backgrounds and experiences which are utterly different from their classmates, and how we meet the needs of children who stay in one class while others arrive and depart. Nor is it a question of whether disabled children are better off in special schools or in mainstream education. Today's question is how we deal in the classroom, in every school, with a wide range of special education needs, including learning disabilities and difficulties and those with mental health challenges. How do we deal with all this difference? All of us here today share common goals and aspirations. We work to make difference within our society, a source of energy, potential and prosperity, rather than a cause of friction, segregation and inequality. We work to improve people's life chances. We want to think about diversity or difference in a way which is about inclusion, not division, in a way which reflects the age of difference we now live in. The task for our institutions, like the Portal Trust and Bayes Business School, is to keep us on course for greater equality, even as the demographic terrain around us continues to shift. The reality is that there are several barriers currently impeding successful integration. Some of them are straightforwardly about discrimination, some of them are about class, some of them are simply systemic. My vision is for an integrated society. It's a vision which I formed from my own personal experience, and as such, I know that it might not resonate with everyone. That being said, my idea is that everyone signs up to a single core set of values held in common and defined legally. Democracy, equality between people, the integrity of the person, and freedom of expression. And when and where these core values conflict with ancestral cultural values, these core values must take precedence. I know dramatic events of recent years are posing a profound challenge for all of us, but where should the balance lie between two extremes? On the one hand, old-style cultural assimilation, in which everyone is expected to discard their own heritage, ethnic, regional, linguistic, in favour of a single norm. On the other hand, a cringing abandonment of the core values and behaviours that distinguish democratic, liberal, modern Britain from other less diverse and open societies. This delicate balance changes all the time. In this country, matters are complicated because these large questions of culture and behaviour, we tend to avoid explicit statements of what is and isn't acceptable. I mean, there's a really bad reason for this. In the old days, there was no problem in establishing where the balance stood, because in those more deferential, less democratic times, the middle classes, the London Times, the BBC and the man from the ministry just told us all what to think and how to behave. But there's a new urgency to this question of integration, especially in a big city like London. When people like my parents first came here, there was a ready-made engine of integration, the workplace. People worked in big factories like Ford, car plants, big transport organisations like London Underground, British Rail, or big public services like the NHS and the Post Office. They learned British ways at the elbows of their workmates, who became their friends and sometimes family. Where they came from, they played with a bat and a ball, and a game lasted for 4 or 5 days. Here, football matters more than cricket, and you had to have a team on a Saturday. My dad's was Chelsea. Where they came from, part of the day's fun was getting 2 extra mangoes for 5 cents less in the local market. They learned you don't bargain with shopkeepers here. Where they came from, you could dance with anybody, any time. Here, you needed to sink 5 pints to get up the courage to go on the dance floor. Today, it's not so easy to find an engine for integration. The size of the average workplace has shrunk. After COVID, many of us are spending more time working from home. And when we are in the office, or the store, or the factory, we're staring at a screen or a phone. There's a job to do in making sure newcomers are welcomed and get the chance to see in practice what it's like to be British. It's education, especially schools and universities where we meet people who don't have the same background as we do. That makes what the Portal Trust and other educational institutions like Bayes and City University do not just a good way to help people pass exams, it makes it part of the glue that holds our society together. Without real interaction, there can be no real integration. We're all trying to find the answers to the implied questions. How can people of very different and not so different traditions, cultures and needs find a way of sharing the same space? Has our historic policy of multiculturalism led to a more integrated society or to more polarised communities? Do we need a more explicit assertion of our common national identity, our Britishness? And if we do, how should we express and promote that identity? Resolving this balance must be a task for the whole nation. We need a mechanism to negotiate and renegotiate the social rules in a constantly changing Britain. Otherwise, we will find ourselves floundering in dangerous waters with some very serious challenges arising from the strains caused by globalisation. I'm not going to pretend we've got all the answers, but we do know that the more we allow groups of people who live and work here to feel that they do not belong to this society, the higher the risk of alienation and polarisation in our communities. As we look to the future, it's clear that London's role as a global hub for talent, innovation and creativity is only going to grow. With its world-leading academic institutions, thriving tech and art scenes and open inclusive culture, London is not just living up to its legacy, it is building a bright future where the next generation of innovators, scientists and artists can thrive. But London's allure for the brightest and most talented individuals from across the globe is no accident. It is a result of centuries of history, a commitment to innovation and excellence, and most importantly, a spirit of openness and diversity. There is still much that needs to change, but it is precisely because of London's willingness to evolve that makes it such a unique place. The majority of us, regardless of our diversity and our educational achievement, know the freedoms, the lifestyle, and the mutual tolerance we enjoy here in London cannot be matched in toto anywhere else in the world. Maybe that is what London can teach the world. I would like to end with another poem by a Caribbean poet, David Nita. David is a lawyer and a poet. He lives in the UK, but he's currently working overseas. Otherwise, he would have joined us this evening. It's a fun poem that treats us to an equal measure of innocence and audacity. A cat may look at a king is an English proverb that means even someone of low status has rights. Poetry is loved in the Caribbean, and despite me being British born and bred, I also have that passion. Once again, the poem is delivered in Jamaican patois, but this time authentic. Please enjoy.
Letter to the Queen, subtitled A Cat May Look at a King. A poem by Dave Nita, read by the author. My dear Queen Elizabeth from London, England. My name is Dave and I'm a raw Jamaican. I come to England for the very first time. I'm so excited because I jump and wine. My passport don't look out and the ticket don't book. I can't wait for reach to London to walk up and down and look. Me are saying England cold and rain always a fall. So me go wear me goloshes, me straw hat and me overall. Me say English people walk fast like them really stark mad. But we don't really care about that as long as they're not bad. The ambassador what you send down is kind of freeze up in brain. But the hot Jamaican sun tight out and now him quite sane. When few people come down to Jamaica, we treat them like royalty. So when they come up to England, may I expect the same hospitality. Me no got no way to say to me I come from short notice. So please me I ask you to fix me up a room in a Buckingham Palace. No, me not go climb no wall like that wretch with them catching in your room. But as I go walk past the garden, I whistle my reggae tune. Me no think I go fancy England food, so nobody give me no shepherd's pie. Strictly banana porridge and I tell food for I and I. Me so excited about seeing him. Me know so like thief me and you got thick. Make sure you send Prince Philip to come pick me up. Me I land at the airport and call gastric. Now me and you will drink some tea when they come. So write and tell me if you need anything. And by the way, me I bring me puss. She says she wants to come look on the king.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm just going to ask you a question about your career and how you started and how far you've come is extraordinary. How did that happen? How did you come from being a teacher with racial taunts in your workplace and so on to all the positions that you have held and how you work today?
Oh, well, thank you for the question. Well, I think a lot of people my age and my background have similar stories, to be honest, because it was the time, it was a period where the workplace was quite a sort of difficult, tense environment for black people. And racial taunting and racial banter, you were told they were only joking, so you had to put up with it. And what I will say is that in the British Museum, I worked for, well, I got the job in the British Museum by sheer fluke, but now I look back, I think maybe it was a bit of a joke, because I turned up for an interview to be to work in the prints and drawings section of the British Museum, and I didn't know, I was done a teaching qualification, so I didn't know anything about prints and drawings. I didn't know anything about doing restoration work or anything like that, but I got the job. I think that they thought it would be quite amusing to have a black person working in the British Museum. I actually think, now I look back, I mean, I'm very proud that I worked there, and I had 4 splendid years working, and then I moved into communications. It was my first communications, was my first PR job, and worked in, so it was a great experience for me. But now I look back, I think it was that kind of environment at the time that they just thought it would be amusing and funny to have someone, a black person who didn't know anything about restoration and prints and drawings, and to stick her in that bit of the museum. But people always ask me how I managed to survive it all, and I think without realising what I was doing, I created my own network, my own sort of mentoring group. So there were horrible people in that environment who obviously made awful jokes and embarrassed you and all the rest of it, but there were also some rather splendid people as well, who were very considerate, very kind and very supportive. And those are the people that I gravitated towards, and they supported me, and they became my sort of mentors without having a proper mentor program, but I discussed all my work issues with them and so on. And some of them became very good friends in the future. And what I would say is that my first boss in the British Museum, who was a dreadful racist, actually, but it was born out of a lot of ignorance and a lot of silly nonsense. And over the years, we became very good friends, and she ended up becoming godmother to one of my children. So, you know, you can change people.
Yes. Okay, so we've got time for a couple of questions. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to ask a question? Yes.
On the screen, we saw you presiding over citizenship ceremonies. And my old chair, of course, Colleen. And I was just wondering what emotional thoughts came to mind as you see other individuals' journey to become UK citizens. So I'm sure you had different thoughts to me. So what are your thoughts when you do that ceremony?
Well, one of the things that I found most fascinating, actually, about they're asking about citizenship ceremonies and the effect that it has on me. And one of the most surprising things that I found is that the majority of people becoming British citizens now are white. And I did find that quite surprising, I have to be honest. I was quite shocked. I was expecting to see a room full of black and brown people all going through this wonderful ceremony. And actually the majority, and I've done quite a few now, and always the majority are white. So I find that, so things have obviously changed, I think. So that's quite interesting. I find it interesting as well that some people take it very seriously and they become quite emotional and they're completely invested in it. And some people, you get the impression they just popped out for lunch and they've just come quickly, get it over and done with, and I've got to get back to whatever I was doing before. But I do, what I also find interesting is that I have a lot of say in the speech that I give for the citizenship ceremony. There's very little guidance about what needs to be in it. So I do talk a lot about diversity. I talk about volunteering, which is a big thing, you know, participation, becoming part of your community and things like that. So I think I find that quite interesting. But I think my parents would have been shocked and surprised to see their daughter sitting there doing that now.
Yes, amazing. Okay, I'm being prompted that we have to move on. I think I saw one more question in the middle at the back there. Would you just like to do your question? And then we'll move on.
Thanks, Colleen. That was really inspiring. Angie Teverson, London College of Fashion. I think you spent some time as a press officer in government. I wonder if there's anything you'd be willing to share about how that had an impact on you, either politically or personally.
Well, when I was a press officer in government, it was, I have to say, quite a long time ago. I'm much older than I look. It was quite a long time ago. And I worked for both governments, actually Conservative and Labour governments. So I've got experience of both sides of politics. We had a lot of power and influence as press officers. And I can say that I sat in meetings with ministers and senior civil servants and changed government policy because I made them think about the presentation and how that would come across to the public. So that doesn't happen now. I still have friends who work in government PR, and that doesn't happen. So it was, because it was quite a new kind of industry as well, around PR, marketing, promotions, media work, we did have quite a lot of influence and quite a lot of say in how things were carried out. But I was there for a lot of crises and a lot of scandals. And so interesting times. I remember one minister, I'll say, he's long gone now, Paul Channon. We were doing a visit and he had to get on a train. So we went to the train station and we had to wait for the train, and we were waiting and it came and it was packed and he refused to get on. And then the next train came and it was packed and he refused to get on. And we said, but you know, we've got to go, we've got to be somewhere. And he said, no, something must have happened. People would not put up with this every day.
Okay, so we've also got to go, but there's one final question, just this lady here. A very quick question.
Thank you very, very much, Colleen. It's been absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned it's not so easy to find an engine for integration and that education is important. Well, Malcolm X said, there's no such thing as integration, only assimilation. What do you think?
I don't agree. So, because, no, I don't agree, because I think it's quite interesting, actually, because when, as a first generation migrant, you might say, we worked a lot on trying to integrate into British society. Right? That was my parents came here, and they encouraged us to mix, to do, involve ourselves in British life, to consider ourselves to be British, and to adopt those values. I think what happened is that the next generation have come along, and they've said, "Oh no, we don't want to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to just go our own way." And I think it's because they saw us being rejected. Although we tried to integrate, we had, racism, we had all these difficulties, riots and all the rest of it, and people gave up. And they just thought, we can't be part of British society. So you end up with alienated groups sitting outside of it. But I am British first and foremost, and I respect and like British values, and those are the values, and that's what makes Britain great. And those are the values that I think we should be passing on to whoever wants to live here and be part of this society. I know these are controversial views, but they're mine. And I just don't agree that people should have to give up their heritage and their languages and their culture, but they should also understand what Britain is and adopt cultures and values that belong to Britain. And I think we're in danger of losing everything and it becoming muddled, then we won't have this great holistic, diverse society that we all go on about and love so much if we can't harmonise and find a way of living together.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for your question. Okay, so I'm sorry there's no more time for questions. However, Professor Elizabeth Hill, she's the Deputy President of the City University, would like to say a few words before we finish.
So as Deputy President of City University of London, I would like to thank you, Colleen, for delivering such an important lecture this evening. And just to loop back to sort of where you started, I think you are as educated and informed, at least as educated and informed as anyone else who stood on this stage. And you have definitely educated and informed us and left us with a lot of things to reflect on tonight. So thank you very much for that. At Bayes and indeed at City, we recognise our place at the heart of the City of London, and we constantly strive to harness the diversity, innovation and leadership which we have been hearing about this evening. We hope and attempt to play our part in the ecology of that engine for integration that you talked about earlier, Colleen. We're also very proud of our relationship with the Portal Trust and share its vision for furthering the education of young people in the community. So once again, thank you for delivering the Portal Trust lecture, and thank you to all of you for joining us here tonight. And now I'm going to hand over to Richard.
I've got a microphone. Yeah. Now you know why they were hidden behind the... Many thanks on behalf of the Portal Trust, Colleen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm sure you will all agree that that was a superb lecture. Thank you, Colleen. Your valuable advice and support given to the Portal Trust is very much appreciated. Before we conclude with the formalities, the Portal Trust would like to elicit your thoughts and opinions on this evening's events. We'd really appreciate it if you could scan the QR code on the card that was placed on your seats and answer our short survey about tonight's events. There's also an option at the end to opt in to our upcoming newsletter so you can keep up to date with the latest news and the research from the Trust. I'm delighted to announce that the accomplished historian, author, former Shadow Secretary of State for Education, Dr. Tristram Hunt, the Director of the V&A, has very kindly agreed to deliver the Portal Trust Education Lecture in 2025. Finally, you will all be most welcome to stay for the post-lecture reception where conversations can continue. So thank you again for attending. We do appreciate all your support for the Portal Trust. Thank you very much.